All right. We're there. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had some drinks and refreshed yourselves. It's scorching hot over here, so it's really important for me to have something to drink. Thank you for patience. Okay, for the last part of this presentation, I thought we'd dig deep into the database itself, and I'll show you some things that I like to use, and hopefully you will all see something that you hadn't thought of before or used before. And how you use IWDB all depends on what you actually do. If you're a puppy buyer like me, you will certainly look for other things than if you are a breeder, if you're researching breeding material, or if you're in a breed body or a health group and want to find the information. So IWDB is surprisingly deep in this information, and we believe that you can find quite a lot of things there. And at the end, I'll talk a bit about what we are considering adding, and we'll also look at what we've added recently. But I'll start at the basics. So this is the front page, and it's really geared towards you finding a dog that you know something about, at least parts of its name, and you can type in any part of a name and find a dog, and you can also use the advanced search facility up here instead if you prefer more of a refined search for a dog. But I'll just look into Ambala, which is our leader, and click on him to see what's going on here. So this is the standard pedigree page where we have a menu on the top. We have basic information down here, and then we have several panes with further information. I'm logged in as a user now, so all my private notes show up, which are here. So this one says pet name Lyder had short ulnar syndrome early in life. So he was crippled in one of his front legs due to that. But that's a private information that I use to collect information that's not necessarily available at other places. I tend to use private notes to jot down notes from shows. When I see a dog, I tend to input information about what I see, and I tend to use it for information that is given to me from others as well. So when I'm logged in, you can see I have add private notes on every dog in the pedigree. So when I'm working down here, I can move my cursor over and it turns yellow. I can click on it and just add a private note on that dog. And we'll get to the login part later on. Then here we have his main pedigree. I hope you all know how to read the pedigree, but at the top is the sire side, where you have his sire here, Orion of Nutstone, 2025. And then you have the dam side further down here. On each of these dogs, there's quite a lot of information. You have the name, you have a picture if you have it, registration number, color, the number of litters the hound in question had, the lifespan, cause of death. That's if we have that, like over here, or maybe down on amber here, cause of that's DCM, and the health checks that are registered in the database, and the breeders as well. A lot of this information is clickable, so I can click on the breeder name and get a listing of all puppies that are attributed to them. And I can also click on the name of dog to get to that pedigree. So that's fairly basic pedigree stuff, which you get in almost all pedigree software. On top here, we have a number of photos. It's scrollable. So with Lyder, we have quite a few of them. I can click on any photo and get it up here. Like that. And if I'm registered as a user and have uploaded photos myself, I can also delete or move them with these arrows here. I'm a super user, so I can do that on all dogs. But for most of you, you can do that on the images you have uploaded yourself, and use these arrows to move them to the top or to the bottom or whatever. If you'd like to keep a repository of your dog's photos, like I do. Up here we have selected for the number of generations we'd like to see. On a mobile phone, you will get 3 generations as a standard because it's more practical to see. We can always change that into more generations than that, up to 10. And the 10 generations, we have a very large number of dogs shown here, which makes it visually quite difficult to navigate. So I very rarely use that for navigation here, but I might do it for other parts of the database. I'll just switch back to 5, which is the basic number of generations. These panes here all give different type of information about Lyder, but I'll just switch to his sire, I think, because he had offspring, Lyder did not. And I think I'll just start with the offspring tab. Because we'll find quite some interesting information here. I'll just expand it. First, we'll see that he had 26 offspring altogether and 95 unique descendants. So if his sons and daughters had litters again, they will be the unique descendants here. And we'll also see that the total born worldwide after Orion on that stone is 26,217. So a very small proportion of those dogs are related to Orion. And that's what you'll see over here. You'll see that 99.6% of dogs born after him are unrelated to him. You can also use this one here to see how his influence on the breed expands over time. And his is almost like none. But we'll see later on when we look at other dogs that you'll see how a popular sire is born. What I find interesting here is this part, where the average lifespan of offspring is 5 years and 8 months. And that's based on lifespan of 6 hounds with lifespan of more than a year, up to a total of 26 offspring. That's really not enough to draw any conclusions. You need information on more dogs than just 23%. But altogether, I would say that it seems like he hasn't quite lived up to his promise when it comes to longevity. You would expect him to give a longer average lifespan. But then again, his litters are born between 2016 and 2019, and quite a lot of those are still alive. So it's no conclusions drawn on that. So why am I saying that you would expect more? It's because if you look at his ancestors tab, I can see that the average recorded lifespan in his pedigree is 8 years and 10 months. And that's based on 47 out of 62. That's 3 in 4 of the dogs in his 5-generation pedigree. And as the breed average is 7 years and 4 months, That's actually 18 months more than the breed average, which is quite significantly more. And I would expect, well, the potential for longevity in his offspring is certainly large. You'll also see in the ancestors tab is that you'll see something called ancestor loss here. And that's not actually the same as inbreeding, which you will see here. Inbreeding is the what we see from common ancestors on both sides of the pedigree, both the sire and dam side. So we can have a inbreeding level of 0, no inbreeding at all, but still have ancestor loss and common ancestors in the pedigree. Back in the main pedigree page, you will identify the ancestors that are that appear multiple times by the color behind their entry here. You'll see both the black knight on nutstone, Macushla on nutstone, Ross on nutstone, Rosemary on nutstone, Fingal, etc., are all appearing multiple times in his pedigree. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's inbred. He's a bit, but not significantly so. His inbreeding level is 4.5% over 5 generations, which is a bit over the average, but not dramatically so. You can see there are certainly dogs that have a low inbreeding, but have a large ancestor loss. So I don't know if you're familiar with it, with that term, or if you use it at all, but if you have a high ancestor loss, it just means that, well, one or more of your parents are inbred, but it doesn't mean that the pup itself is inbred. Why does it matter? Well, a high ancestor loss means a loss of genetic variation. And we do know that a lack of genetic variation also means less robustness in the puppies. Their immune system may be weaker, not necessarily so, but there's an increased risk for that. And they are generally less robust and more suspect to things like allergies and things like that. So it's not something I would like, and I tend to look at that quite a bit when I'm looking at puppies, actually. Also see this one here, which is important to me. How many died before veteran age? In FCI, the European mainly, or the worldwide dog organization, the veteran age is 80 years. I know that in the US it's 6. I don't know what it is in Canada. But in Europe and most of the rest of the world, it's 8 years to become a veteran. And in his pedigree, there are 41 recorded veterans and only 6 that died before veteran age, which is significant. It means that it's highly probable that his offspring should reach veteran age and more, which I would like to know. And if you go further down, we have ancestor lists where we have common ancestors. We can see here which ancestors are actually used on both sides here, and what I would call a mild form of line breeding. And I would say that Orion is slightly line bred on Fingal. He appears 2 times on the sire side in 5 generations and 3 times on the dam side here, altogether 5 times, and has a percentage of blood, or contribution, as I call it when I looked at the pedigree map. That is really quite high for a dog that's so remote in generations. So he's the most significant dog in line breeding here, together with Captain and Rossa of Nutstone. This is a really good tool if you are line breeding and somebody asks you what you line breed on, which is a good question. and I would go here to see, okay, I'm line breeding on these dogs. And it's a it's a fairly good assumption. And normally we will say that, oh, I'm line breeding on this dog or that dog. And what you're really doing is somebody else. And to see that, you would probably need to go further back and see maybe 8 generations. 10 is makes calculations more time consuming and less practical. So if I go back 8 generations, I will see that, okay, I thought I was line breeding on Fingal, but I'm really line breeding on Captain of Shantaman. He's the one that has a really large percentage of blood, a really large contribution in this pedigree. Right, so we can do these tests here. And as you'll see, the number of times the dog appears in the pedigree isn't necessarily important, but the closeness is important together with the number of times. So that's why we list 1 time in generation 4, once in generation 5, 3 times in generation 6, twice in generation 7, and so on. And you can use that in a fairly good way. Down here we have the sire and dam lines, where you can explore that, and you can explore the sires and dams in the pedigree. What you'll see down here, as you'll see in most listings in IWDB, is you'll see a dagger symbol in front of some of the dogs, and that indicates that that dog is deceased, and we have information on that in the database. So quite interesting to me anyway. If we look at the siblings, you will see a similar lifespan focus. You can see the average lifespan is 9 years and 4 months in full siblings and 8 years and 6 months in half siblings. But there's very little data on his half siblings here, and that's unfortunate. Would be useful for those breeding on him. Okay, we have also 2 tools that are, I think, underused. We have the reverse pedigree, which shows the descendants of this dog in the first column here, and the grandchildren in the second column, and the great-grandchildren in the third column, and so on. So you can actually see, okay, what has this sire given? So in this case then, even though his pedigree is quite impressive, the lifespan and the potential there is really impressive, and he's still alive at the age of 10, which is impressive, and still going to shows and doing quite well. He's really a good dog. What we'll see here is that out of the 90, well, we have lifespan information of 14 of the 95 descendants of Orion, and the average there is only 3 years and 1 month, which is disappointing to me, and would probably make me reconsider if I wanted to use him as a stud dog. But then again, you only have information on 14.7% of his descendants, so it might be that that image changes when we have more complete data. But I tend to look at that information also on grandparents of the dogs I'm looking for puppies from, and see what have they actually given, and what do we have here. I'm not too concerned about titles. You will see Orion has a Danish Winner 2018 title. Fear of Nuston is an Irish champion. I'm not looking much at that, but you can if you want to, and if you like, and we do spend quite a lot of energy keeping up with all the titles and adding them to the database as well. The vertical pedigree is a bit like the ordinary pedigree, except that it also lists all the siblings of the dogs in the pedigree. So here, Per Arne, which is Orange's father, is also his uncle here, Koimi Onastone, and the siblings of his mother here. And you'll see that all the way. And you can also see here the average lifespan of siblings in that litter. If you look at this one, for instance, average lifespan of full siblings is here, 9 years and 9 months, whereas he only lived to 5 years. But it still might be interesting simply because his siblings lived so long. And then you can see the same average calculation here with lifespan of vertical pedigree, which is also quite good. And also tend to look at the causes of death and see if they look quite normal. In this case, old age weak rear is the dominant cause of death, 37.5% of the dogs, whereas the average, as you'll see here, is just 11%. And then they have bloat, where the average is 8%, and in this case 25%, but only from 2 dogs. So it's maybe not a risk factor, but it might be. So that's how I read and interpret these data. Okay, I'll go into his son again. I'll go into stem, Amber, because I wanted to show you. Oops, I won't. I'm sorry about that. We can look at Camellia here. I just want to show you briefly the critiques here, because in some countries, all critiques or all dogs in shows are critiqued, given a written critique, and it's published. So what we do here is add that information to the database. All these critiques are from Norwegian shows, and most of them are in English. You'll see Arlene Flanagan has said this about him. Hector Hiscoat has said this, and Thomas Rolin has said this, but you probably won't understand that, which is why we added a translate function here to translate that into the language of choice for you. You can always choose the language you like up here. So if I want to use French instead, and use a translate here, I can get that one into French if I like. I'll switch back into English because I can't understand a word of this one. So it's limited. We are working on adding more historical critiques, but at the moment it's mainly from Norway, Finland, Denmark, and UK that we have this. And we do try to work our way through all the magazines and add that information as well. But that's something might be, at least to me, it's useful to see what breeders that I respect thought of this dog when I'm researching it. We also have health info. So Camellia here had her heart checked twice at the age of 58 months and 44 months, and also had HD and ED results here with a score of AA and 00, which might not mean much to you in the American subcontinent. You might want to check our help piles here. If you look at help and reading health checks, you will have information here what hip A means, no signs of hip dysplasia. B is near normal, etc., etc., and a translation table here. So A would be excellent and good in the US or UFA data, whereas B would be good or fair, C would be borderline and mild. And you'll have the more or less the same in elbows, except we don't have that translation table. So grade 0 means normal elbows, whereas grade 1 means mild ED, less than 2 millimeter thickness of new bone formation on the elbows. And there's also some information on heart and cardiac and about eyes here. We do look into the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals and download all the data on a regular basis and input that into the database. For people living in other countries where information isn't published, at the moment you will have to actually send us the health certificates, and we will add that manually to your dogs, unfortunately. And also, if you'd like information added that's not added to UFA for some reason, we're happy to accept that, but you'll have to send us a photo of the certificate to the same email address as I used for donations, which is info@iwdb.org. Okay, so I wanted to give you a few things here. First, the pedigree map. I talked a bit about it. It's a fantastic way to get lost into the history of your dog. First of all, at the top we have the breed contribution, and you can see for this dog, there's a theoretical contribution from Scottish Deerhound of 6.5%. And from Great Dane, 1.7%, and then Tibetan dog, 0.2%. And I can't really see the Borzoi, but it's probably there as well as the Mastiff. We also got the complete tail lines here, the maternal tail line and the paternal tail line, if you'd like to explore that. And we have this ancestor contribution where we go down and down and down. You have the number here, which is the number in order of contribution. The name of the dog, number 18, is Musters Monsey, born in UK in 1875. He was a Scottish Deerhound. And then the number of times of appearance. In this case, 40,396,277,379 times in his pedigree, from generation 23 to 56. The blue here is the sire side, and the pink one is the dam side. These are the number of generations, and this is the total percentage. And over here you have the breed, and further down you will also see Graham Spencer, which is considered the founder to the breed, which you'll see here on the right-hand side. So I can browse to find the more obscure dogs in this pedigree. And there's quite a few dogs here. Most Irish Wolfhounds have these days will have between 2,500 or 2,000 and 3,500 dogs in the pedigree. Here we'll find the one that's furthest away, Sorrow Ulaid. Only once 18 generations back. And we also have information about how complete is the pedigree from each generation. And we can see in this case, we have complete information for 15 generations. And then the first founder creeps in generation 16, which is probably because it is the founder back then. So hours of joy just browsing these, actually. I really enjoy it. And I think it's something that's unique for our database anyway. But I wanted to show you a couple of more things. First, all of these features are available also for trial matings. So if I want to create trial mating, I highly advise that you give them a name. For instance, Lavrans X Promise. I then give it a sex as well, because you can use trial matings in new trial matings. So if you want to plan for generations ahead, what if I do this mating and then mate that offspring to this one and then mate that offspring to this one? You can always plan that with these tools. So give it a sec, and then I'll just add in a sire and a dam. No, she's not alive, but well, let's see. Oops. Yes. Let's just add another one. Doesn't really matter. And then I'll just give it I won't give it a proposed date of birth, but if I do that, I can still look at siblings, half siblings in this case. I can still look at ancestors and have all these coefficients calculated for me. See the cost of descent pedigree. I can use the reverse pedigree, the vertical pedigree, etc. Maybe not the reverse because there's no offspring here. And the pedigree map will appear, but it will probably take about an hour before all the calculations are done in the background for that one. So I can save that as a favorite by clicking on that orange star, and it will appear, hopefully, in my favorites part here is trial Lavrans X promise. So when I click on the orange star, it's favorited, so it's easy for me to find it later on. I'll just briefly touch upon one of these, because I talked earlier on about how you can see the influence increasing from generation to generation. And this is actually a dog that is a common ancestor. These days, he is a genetic bottleneck. He appears in every pedigree of every Irish wolfhound that lives now. As you'll see here, last dog related to him was born this year. The last dog unrelated to Jason of Sunningdale was born in 2013. So all dogs born after 2013 has indeed been related to him. And there's 116,114 descendants of him that have him in his pedigree. And what you actually see in this graph is that you'll see how his influence has increased from the early 1970s, where very few dogs were related to him, up until 2005, when we had 97%. And actually, the point of no return happened here, somewhere in late 1980s, when more than half the population was related to him, less than 20 years after his first litter. So that's less than 5 generations to populate half the wolfhound population worldwide, which is astonishing. So how could that happen? He had 267 puppies. That explains quite a bit, in 42 litters. So if you want to create a popular sire, if you want to have a genetic bottleneck, make him have quite a lot of litters. Make sure they are exported to different countries, and preferably have him used in different countries. Much easier these days. He was only used in the UK and somewhat in Ireland, I think, but I believe it's mainly in the UK. But a lot of his offspring again was exported to the US, to Canada, to Australia, etc., etc. And suddenly you can't breed away from him. Well, he was a good dog, so what's the problem? In other breeds, we have seen that some dogs carry severe genetic diseases that don't show up for maybe 20, 30, 40 years. It's only a few years back that the greyhound breed discovered the juvenile myelopathy, where they lost feeling in the hind legs at a very low age before they reached the age of 1, and most of those greyhounds had to be put to sleep, and it was almost everywhere in the population, and that they trace that back to one common ancestor in the 60s, which was now in all pedigrees worldwide. So that's one risk. Another risk is that we are losing genetic material when all dogs are actually related to the same common ancestor back there, and we are losing potential for longevity and other things as well. What wouldn't have been a problem was that if his breeding was limited to the UK, if all of his offspring were really ugly, none of them were bred from, none of them were exported, it wouldn't have been a problem because his genes would be limited to the UK, and you wouldn't see him in the US or Canada or Australia or even in Norway. It would be simply a UK problem. And that's more or less what you have now with a lot of the commercial breeders, both in the US and Canada. They breed quite a lot, but none of their males will be a genetic bottleneck simply because they are used in a very limited part of the population. The Norhunters dogs will never be exported to Norway or used here, and will never enter really the mainstream Irish Wolfhounds. So it's not a risk in the same way that the more popular show dog population actually is. I also wanted to show you the advanced search function. It's really quite complicated. We did an update just a few months ago to make it more readable, but it is a way to combine a lot of search functionality. For instance, I think we can use Jason of Sunningdale as an example. And so I can search for any dog which ancestor is not Jason of Sunningdale, is not in his pedigree, and the year born is after 2010. And if I search for that, I will get 10 dogs bred here. They're all, no, 9 of them are from the US, the 9 last ones. I think this one is actually Irish. We'll have a look. Yeah, it's an Irish dog. So, but those are the last 10 dogs that are unrelated to Jason of Sunningdale. So if you wanted to breed some of those, or breed without using Jason of Sunningdale, that would be your dogs of choice. And I could also limit that and say, okay, country of origin is Ireland, and update that. And I will get just one dog. And I can remove and add information. What I did change here is that we added quite a lot of extra columns, which we can use here. You can see if a dog has health info, it has private notes, etc., etc. So it's almost limitless what you can search for here. I really do recommend just playing with it. You can search for things like what's the lifespan in a pedigree. If you want let's see, I want a dog that has a lifespan in pedigree that is more than 8 years. Sorry, 8 years. And sex is male. And I want the country of origin to be, let's say, Canada. And I want ancestor with known lifespan to be at least more than 40. That's I want to know the lifespan of at least 2/3 of the ancestors for that to be interesting. And then I can do a search. And I see that what I got here were mainly older dogs, but I get some here That might be interesting for that one. Then I can add do they have health info? Yes, okay. So maybe I'll have a further look at this one. It's a proven sire as well, so 7 puppies. Or maybe this one. Or maybe you could look at the wolfhound dog side. I don't know. I don't want to be rude to anybody here, but we could certainly look at one of these and see, okay, they have an ancestral lifespan that is interesting to me. The good thing about these searches is that they're complicated to build, but I can save them. So at least I could. I think that's the problem I had recently as well. I should be able to save that one. I'll look into that. And once you have saved searches, you can reload them from this one and reuse them, which is quite useful. So that's the advanced search in a very brief introduction to that one. I'll just go into pedigree again. Also wanted to direct you to what you can do once you're logged in. Logging in is really easy. I'll just log out now. So if you are a registered user, you can just use your email address and the password you created here. If not, you can just register here with an email address you have, your name, and the password you'd like to use. Once you do that, you will get an email in less than a minute asking you to confirm that it's you. And when you've done that, you are a registered user. It is completely free. We do not spam our registered users or email them or anything like that. It just gives you more opportunities in the database. So I'll just log in as myself again. Hopefully that will work. Yeah, successful. And what we do have, let's see, I'll just go into one dog. What we do have when we are registered is that we have the option to correct and append to a pedigree. That's where you'd, for instance, go in and add date of death and cause of death of a dog. You have the option of adding media files. So it's just dropping photos in here, and we will approve them manually. And that's what we do with the corrections and appends to the pedigree as well. We go through them and see, okay, is this looking plausible? Is this actually a photo of a dog if you uploaded it, or is it of your grandma? And we reject the ones that aren't of dogs, and we approve the ones that are of dogs. You can also add litter, where you, if you don't want to wait for the stud book, for instance, it will be really, really helpful if you just add a sire, add a dam, a date of birth, country of origin, and breeder, and add the litter size here, and then you can input all the puppies there with name, sex, registration number, and color, which helps us really enormously. The one thing I didn't mention is that you have the access to private notes when you are logged in. Those notes are really, really private. You can't, I as a programmer can't crack that code. It's encrypted and double encrypted. So it's really not available for anybody else but you. And they are searchable, so you can search for what's in your private notes as well. And the last thing I'd like to mention about being logged in is that if you are logged in, all your history goes with you from device to device. So if you, like me, use your computer for some things and your mobile phone other times, and if you're logged in both places, the history goes both places as well, and all the private notes are synced between the devices, which is really, really useful. So, yeah, I think that's more or less what I wanted to show you of what we have today. We are considering some model options. One of the things we are looking at is a coefficient of relationship of the dogs. That's where you could go in and do a trial mating of two dogs and see how related are these compared to the average relatedness of the breed. That's used quite a lot in what we call preservation breeding with endangered species. I'm not saying the Irish wolfhound is becoming endangered, but it is a practice that's important for some. Another thing we're looking at is, but it's probably a good way away still, a year or two, is to create estimated breeding values for things like longevity, for pneumonia, for heart disease, and for osteosarcoma. So when using estimated breeding values, you look at the whole pedigree and the siblings back there and offspring, and have a rather complete view at the ancestors there and calculate the risk that this puppy will have heart disease or osteo or pneumonia or indeed live a long life. It's not an exact science, and it's just probabilities all the way, but it is a good indicator, and it probably would be whether the dog is less likely or more likely to get these diseases than the average in the breed is. So these are just things we're working on. We're also looking at an option to add if you have stored semen, frozen semen. We are a bit wary of it because we don't want to be a tool for the puppy mills and the most commercial breeders in order to advertise their puppies more than they do. But we do, well, a lot of breeders want to know if a certain sire has stored semen. So it probably would just be an indicator that, okay, this dog has stored semen, and no contact info or commercial info at all. Okay, so I'll drop into the questions we got here now. What is considered an acceptable coefficient of inbreeding, I suppose you mean, Jocelyn? And the answer to that is that depends. It depends on how many generations you are measuring, and it also depends on where you are in the world and which cultural context you are in. What I can tell you is that in Norway and Denmark, it has become illegal to breed with a COI of more than 12.5% measured over 5 generations. That is likely to become European law within the next 2 or 3 years. At least according to the Europeans, that's too high if you measure on 5 generations. But when you talk about this, you also always have to talk about how many generations do you measure on. So, for instance, with this Boondocks bitch, we have very small percentage, 0.22% on 5 generations. But if we go up to 9 generations, which might be a bit dramatic when it comes to calculation time, it will increase dramatically. Let's see. Will take just 10 seconds or so, I think. We are calculating this live for all dogs. So it was 0.22%. It's 1.56% measured in 9 generations. But what you'll see here is that the green area on this meter here has expanded, and the yellow one as well. So that's because we are using the Kennel Club, the Royal Kennel Club of the UK's recommendations as a guideline here. And they do recommend that breeding should be done with a lower coefficient of inbreeding than the average of the breed. And what we are doing is calculating that for the dogs that we expect to be alive today. And a bit more. Over the last 10 years, for 9 generations, the average is 4.93%. And in this case, it's 1.56, so it's quite a lot less. If you go to 5 generations here, we'll see that we should go to 5, sorry. The average is 2.87%. So you really have to say how many generations you're calculating on. Most pedigree software will use 5 generations here. And I'm not saying that this is good and this is bad or whatever, but the Royal Kennel Club say you should breed with lower COI than the average for the sake of the breed. There might be reasons to have as high COI than that. And European lawmakers say that more than 12.5% measured over 5 generations is immoral and illegal. That's their position. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Jocelyn. We can open up for discussions on this and other things afterwards. Laurie, does one have to enter the health testing done or is sent to Alpha? Do the results upload to IWDB? I believe I answered that one. And please just note your question in chat, Donna, or we'll get back to you later on. So yes, we do get the data from UFA, and and for others who aren't part of a authorized testing regime, for instance, if you do a heart screening in Canada and it's not sent anywhere, you're more than welcome to send a certificate to us and we will add it. From Jocelyn, when you save trial mating or advanced search, is that available to everyone or just your originator? So the trial mating first, that's available to others if you share it. You can always just use the sharing part here and share this URL, or just share the address from here, and it's available to everybody else who see that address. But others can't search for that one. You can search your own trial mating. So if I am logged in and I search for trial, you'll see I have quite a lot of those. And these are only the ones I have made myself. So I can search for those and load them up. If you search for that one or you're not logged in, you won't see them. If you are logged in, you will see a logout appear. If you're not logged in, you will see login registered. If you have forgotten your password, or if you don't know if you have a password, you can always, I'll just have to go in here. You can try to log in, like I did, and I don't know, or whatever, just send here. You get wrong username or password. Do you want to reset your password? And you will get an email where you are able to click a link to reset that password. So yes, you can. Okay, what is the red line on the IWDB COI? I'll just drop this one. So the red area is where you have a COI, coefficient of inbreeding, well above the average for the breed. So it goes to plus 0.5% above there. Okay, you answered my COI question, yeah? Okay, blah, blah. If you don't know the exact date of death for an entry, what can I submit? You can submit the months, or you can submit a calculated death of entry, date of death, if for instance know that he lived to the age of 9, you can just add that date when he would have been 9, even though he died a year, no, sorry, not a year, a month earlier or later. It will not make lots of a difference, because the laws of large numbers will make sure this evens out, basically. So Colleen's view on McCormail has a certain influence. I'll have a look here. So, oops. Okay, did I just lose something? No, just became incredibly slow. So that's from Susan Prokopenko. And is that in the pedigree map? I hope so. No. Okay, Susan, I think you have to explain what you meant to me. Sorry. Could you turn on the mic?
Oh, okay. When I looked it up, there was that circle and it said 24 point something influence and a big orange.
On the offspring pane, right? This one.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that just means that 22.5% of the dogs born after him worldwide are related to him, whereas 77.5% is not. Right? So he has 34,388 unique descendants.
Is that too high?
What?
Is that too high?
No, it's just he wasn't used much, right? He had 7 litters, which is quite moderate. But his offspring again, and especially some of them, replicated quite a lot. So what is interesting here is to see this graph where you see the development of his influence on the breed. So you can see that until mid-80s, almost no dogs were related to him. But when you get to 2025, 93% of the dogs worldwide are indeed related to him. And that's quite a lot. And it's really not because of bad breeding practices or anything like that. It's just that some of his probably grandparents became quite popular, or great-grandparents, I don't know, and was used quite a bit. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Did you mean grandchildren as opposed to grandparents?
I did mean grandchildren as opposed to
Okay,
grandparents, yes. And great-grandparents. How can you find out who they were? You look at the reverse pedigree. And if you do that, you can certainly look at the number of generations back here. And I think you have the answer probably here, which was a very popular dog, and some of the terrier dogs. And Starkeeper, of course, is very popular, right, Rosalind? And you'll see somewhere here, it probably spread to a lot of Europe, but you'll have to really browse through this. I think it might be a cool idea to add a reverse pedigree map where you could actually list all of those dogs that are descendants of a certain dog, in order to find out who they are, the ones that became popular. And that might be an idea for the future. Okay. Any further questions? Time to wrap up. Donna has raised her hand. Sorry. Come on, Donna.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find how to type in the question, but is there any value in us recording or Irish Wolfhound Database recording the different types of cancer, or at least the major ones like osteosarcoma and lymphoma?
Yes.
And that And will we get to that at any time?
It is very valuable. We have had several research projects that were based on data from the database, and that took in all that information. We have like 125 subcategories of causes of death in our database, but we summarize that into the main categories. We might do slight changes to that and maybe visualize late and early onset as well. But yeah, at the moment we just collect as much as we can and we summarize it like this.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I really enjoyed
Thank
the
you.
presentation.
Excellent to hear that. Well, thank you. I'll leave it to you, Laurie.
I'm just really grateful that you were able to spend this 2 hours with us. Thank you so much. So one of the key learnings that I have is that it's so important to put that longevity data in the website. So for Canada, at least we need to enter lifespan. So thank you so much. We might have you back for sure. Thank you so much.
Please just ask. I'm very happy to just spread the word, or if you want to do a deep dive into something, if there's something you really need to learn more about, please just ask, and I'm always helpful and available, and you're able to send me email as well if there's something you're curious about.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the rest of your day in Canada and the US. I'll go. It's getting dark here, so almost bearable temperatures.
And so you'll send a link to the recording that I can put up?
I will send that to you. I'll just edit out some of the blunders first, and I'll send it to you probably tomorrow.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. It's been a great success. We had like 37 people online.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you for being here.
Have a good day.
Bye then.
Bye-bye.